morning, Facebook. This is Dr. Hubert at Advanced Remedy Center, and I just wanted to jump on real quick and talk a little bit about the dreaded coronavirus. Maybe I can help ease some of your frustration, your panic, maybe calm some nerves when it comes to the coronavirus. So the first thing we want to know about the coronavirus is that it is a man-made virus. So this didn't occur naturally in nature. This is not by accident. This is a man-made virus. It's been around for a really long time. So this is something that, one, we don't need to fear. So when we think about what the coronavirus does and what happens, it's no real difference between the coronavirus and really any other virus. Now, the first thing we want to talk about is understanding that mere exposure to viruses is not what makes us sick. So we're under the impression that if we share air or share saliva or share space with anyone with the coronavirus, that's going to make us sick, and that's not necessarily the way it is. So mere exposure when it comes to really microbes for the most part is not what's scary. So what's scary is whether or not your body is an actual host for the microbe. So when we start thinking about coronavirus, we see these planes landing that supposedly have however many people with coronavirus on them, or they find out there's a case of coronavirus in this city or that city or this hospital or whatever may have you. Just because you're in that hospital or on that plane doesn't mean you get sick. For those of you that have worked with me one-on-one, you hear me use the analogy all the time. It's a lot like a daycare. So there are lots of kids in daycares across the country that end up sick. But generally, it's the same kids that end up sick over and over again. So the reason is not because of mere exposure. It's because their body is a great host for these viruses, for these colds, flus, this sort of thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about it in a few minutes, how we become a great host, and this is inevitably what makes us sick. But even in the filthiest daycares in the country, there are kids that go every day and still don't end up sick. Even in big office buildings, big corporations where you have a few people that are sick, for teachers that teach and things like that. They work with teachers that inevitably end up sick, but it's the same teachers that are sick over and over again. It's the same kids in the daycare that are sick over and over again. But in all of these places, there are people that don't get sick. There's people that work in office buildings that never miss a day for 30 years. They've never been sick. There's teachers that work in the same schools that never miss a day for 30 years. They don't get sick. There's kids that go to the same daycare. They don't get sick. So what's the difference between the person that gets sick and those that don't? Okay, so the truth is when you get exposed to that microbe, if you end up sick, you were sick to begin with. Okay, so let's back up and rephrase that. Let's talk about that. So if you end up sick, you were sick already, meaning that your body was a great environment for you to basically manifest and turn this into the sickness that we know it as. There are going to be people around you that get exposed just like you that don't get sick. So when we talk about what makes us sick, the first thing we have to understand is how well can our bodies disinfect ourselves. So we have a chemical that is produced in our stomach called hydrochloric acid. And hydrochloric acid is the biggest determining factor for those who get sick and those who don't. So if we lose our ability to produce hydrochloric acid, we lose our protection against viruses, bacteria, fungal overgrowth, but also we become a prime breeding ground for things like coronavirus. And this is the people who start to express those symptoms. So what determines our ability to produce hydrochloric acid? The first thing is, one, we have to make sure we have an adequate amount of thyroid hormone. If we lose our ability to produce thyroid hormone, this happens to basically everybody. Everybody goes through a major hormonal shift between age 27 and 35. When this shift occurs, we lose our ability to produce the energy necessary to produce hydrochloric acid, and we lose our disinfecting power. When we lose our disinfecting power, things that we get exposed to, now they make us sick. Otherwise, if we have a sufficient amount of thyroid hormone, we have a sufficient amount of hydrochloric acid, Essentially what happens, we never know we got exposed to things like the coronavirus. This works for colds, this works for flus, this works for virtually everything. This is the way it works. So if you've ever wondered why you send your kids to daycare and they always end up sick, and then your friends' kids go to the same daycare and they never end up sick, this is the difference. This is where we want to look. We want to start looking at their ability to produce thyroid hormone, their ability to produce hydrochloric acid, as well as paying close attention to the lifestyle changes. Now, the biggest thing that concerns me right now about the coronavirus is that we're all about to go through a major lifestyle change because the time change is about to happen again. So next week, the time change is going to change back. So when it changes in the fall, this is when most people start to get sick. This is really officially the beginning of the cold and flu season. So the days get shorter and colder. Our schedules get messed up. We can't really fit the things necessary. But ultimately it ends up with a lot of fatigue. We end up tired. We end up stressed out. I truly believe myself that the time change itself is stressful on the human body because we're just not used to having to shift our whole life around for something such as that. So when this time change shift, if we're already dealing with this virus that everybody's panicked over, the main thing we have to do is give ourselves that ultimate protection. One, you want to make sure you're getting plenty of rest. It's just like any other virus, rest. You've got to have some rest. You've got to plan your day accordingly and do everything you can do to manage your stress correctly. If you don't manage your stress, you're always going to be much more susceptible, much more likely to get sick. And then from there, we want to make sure we're exercising good habits, okay? So good habits as far as eating. So you want to make sure you're eating as clean a diet as you possibly can. You want to make sure you're getting plenty of rest. You want to make sure if you do vitamins or supplements, some of the vitamins and supplements you may want to look into is you want to add things like vitamin A. You want to add things like vitamin D. And if you have a great hydrochloric acid supplement, that would be an excellent choice as well. So these are things that will help you tremendously during this time, but at the end of the day, it's nothing to panic over. The common cold, the common flu is far more deadly, far more dangerous than the actual coronavirus. When we look statistically at the numbers, this is more of a media ploy than it is anything else. It's definitely got our attention. All you have to do is look at the stock market. It is absolutely tanking over this, but at the end of the day, we really don't want to look. We don't want to look at this as an opportunity to be in fear. We just want to look at it as an opportunity to be better. Okay, so we want to do everything we can to create an environment in our bodies that's not going to allow us to be sick, so we can merely be exposed and go on about our day, and we never know that we were exposed to these things to begin with. So once again, if you want to talk about what you can do to protect yourself and help yourself out, is one, make sure you get plenty of rest, make sure you minimize stress, add your vitamin A, add your vitamin D, make sure you're taking a good hydrochloric acid supplement, and if you have not had your thyroid checked, you want to make sure that you're producing enough thyroid hormone. This is where it all begins. Everybody goes through a major hormonal shift between age 27 and 35. When that shift occurs, we lose our ability to produce hydrochloric acid, and this is really why we end up sick. If you notice, the media is talking about how the coronavirus affects the elderly more. The reason the elderly is more affected because they've already gone through that major hormonal shift. They've lost their ability to produce hydrochloric acid. They can't disinfect their bodies correctly. So if you look at what happens to the elderly, one, they don't have energy, just like hypothyroid people do. They don't have the energy they should have. They don't have the disinfecting power they should have, meaning they develop the dreaded old people skin, dry scaly scalps, dry cracked heels, dry skin in general. Older people, they typically complain about being cold a lot. Heat is energy. When you can't convert sugar to energy, you end up cold, and that's a hypothyroid type symptom. This is why they are much more susceptible to colds, to flus, to pneumonia. The coronavirus may have you. So it's not like the coronavirus woke up this morning and said, you know, how many old people can I go make sick and kill? The coronavirus doesn't do that. The only thing it's doing is it's looking for a host. It's just looking for a great environment. And what we need to do to protect ourselves is eliminate that environment. Eliminate that environment by making sure we have plenty of rest, making sure we're taking vitamin A, vitamin D, making sure we have a sufficient amount of hydrochloric acid and thyroid hormone. If you even suspect that you have a thyroid hormone issue, do everything you can to get it checked. The numbers I would recommend checking first is make sure you have a TSH of 1.0 or less. As far as hydrochloric acid goes, you can look at a number called MCV, called mean corpuscular volume. This is the size of your red blood cells. If that number is over 85, that means you have a hydrochloric acid issue, which typically goes hand in hand with a thyroid hormone issue. And these are just a few things. You want your vitamin D levels. You want your vitamin D levels to be between 70 and 100. So if your vitamin D levels are in the teens and 20s, just once again, get to supplementing, get these things going, give yourself the ultimate protection. But don't live in fear. All of this stuff, don't start looking for vaccinations and things like that. That basically, all this is going to stem from those who have a decent lifestyle and a decent quality of life versus those that don't. That's who's going to get sick versus the people that don't get sick. So don't panic, breathe, look at the facts, look at the statistics. Don't get so caught up in the fear of watching where the virus may or may not be. The virus is going to be there. There's a good portion of people listening right now and watching right now that have already been exposed to the virus and they don't even notice. Now, if you do get sick, if you did end up symptomatic from this, just go ahead and tell yourself, you know what, I was already sick before this got me. I was already ran down, I was already consuming too much sugar, I was already eating too much, drinking too much, staying up too late, doing the things that made me a perfect host for that. But even then, don't panic. Don't run out and start looking for vaccinations and those kind of things. Just change your lifestyle accordingly. These are all things we should be doing all the time anyway. So if you've been plagued with sickness all year, if this has been one of the worst cold or flu seasons you've ever had, just chalk it up to your lifestyle. Just go and reevaluate your lifestyle and make sure that you put yourself in a position to do better from here on. You don't have to think of yourself as getting old or not quite what you used to be or anything like that. It has nothing to do with that. It's all environmentally derived. So as long as we have a great environment for health, that's what we have. If we have an environment that promotes sickness and disease, that's what we will get. So at the end of the day, hopefully this brings a sigh of relief to a few people who are panicked about coronavirus. Hopefully we can start to focus on other things that matter. But inevitably, you're far more in control than what you think you are. Most people truly believe that they're just sitting around hoping not to be exposed to this. At the end of the day, we're probably all going to get exposed to this. But we don't have to be symptomatic because of mere exposure. So don't try to run from it. Just make sure that if you do get exposed, that it doesn't make you sick. You're going to do that by making sure your supplementation is correct, making sure you are eating as clean as possible, you're resting as much as possible, and managing stress in your life. Looks like it's going to be another wonderful weekend. The sun's actually shining here in Texas. We've had a good bit of rain over the last couple of weeks, so get out, get that body temperature up. That's another great way to kill some critters. I'm planning to go out and do some jogging and running today. Go ahead and get the heart rate up and body temperature up, because that gives you another level of protection. So don't hide from coronavirus. Go ahead and equip yourself. Give yourself the best opportunity to be well. And we will talk to you hopefully early next week. Y'all have a wonderful week.